Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of the Monsters Den. Today, we have a topic that was brought to us by Mr. Chris Allo here. And this is all about films we actually saw in the theater, where we walked out of the theater after the film was over and we were either pretty pissed off or really, really disappointed. So we went specifically looking forward to seeing these films. When we walked out and the wind was let out of our sails, the air was let out of the balloon, and we were pretty upset about it. So let me introduce everybody here. Of course, Chris Allo, Dan Brown, Jamie Lazlo, Craig Kaminski, and David Gallagher. Greetings, gentlemen.
Guys.
Hello.
Good evening.
I tell you what, every 2 weeks now, I find myself missing you guys.
Ah,
That's sweet.
Aiming for the fjords.
See that? And we have viewers who are like, I don't know if I can wait 2 weeks to see you guys again. We have
you got to rewatch the old episodes.
there you go,
That's
right,
it.
the ones you missed.
Yeah.
There's over 100 of them. So
Mhm.
When it was just Pete and a candle.
you remember those days?
Oh, yeah.
Your friend.
It was like a black mass, wasn't it?
I know. Yeah, those. Yeah, that was when I had no idea what I was going to do with this show. I was like, all right, I know I want to talk about horror movies, but I don't know.
I'll just tell you the plot of this movie. It opens with
Yeah. Me and the candle, no lights behind me. It's like you can
Yeah.
barely see me. I don't play
Just
that.
read
creepy
the
music
back of the
back.
box. I hear that's very popular on some other.
Or you could just pull a Rich Catino, just read it off Wikipedia.
Yeah.
I kid. I love Rich. Rich, I love you.
and you got to put your glasses down like this.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I gotta bug Rich. I gotta get him back on here. He hasn't been on here in forever. I don't know if Rich is watching many horror movies lately. You got to catch him right around Halloween time. Then he gets into it, you know. So anyway, I digress. So seeing as this was his idea today, I'm gonna we're gonna go two trips around. So everybody will give two with each shot. So Chris, kick us off with the two films that pissed you off in the theaters.
Okay. The first one there's a lot that came to mind. I got to be honest. And yes, like Jamie mentioned before we went live, some were horror, some were not. But I'm definitely going to go horror for the first two here. And the first one, I'm pulling a Catino because I didn't see this one in a movie theater. I saw it in a drive-in.
Oh, that's the same. That's the same.
Oh, that's okay. That's not.
For the
Never
life
go
of
full
me,
Catino. Never go full Catino.
and it's up here. I'm close enough to live next to two drive-ins, and it was in 2010. And I guess it had been a while since I had seen a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, and so I was very excited for the Nightmare on Elm Street remake. I thought Jackie Earle Haley was a good choice, and I went to the drive-in. This was the second movie. For the life of me, I cannot remember what the first movie was, but obviously they were two new movies. And man, I thought Nightmare on Elm Street, the remake from 2010, was the worst shit I had ever seen. Like by far the worst Nightmare on Elm Street movie. The only innovative shots in this fucking movie was stuff that the guy ripped off from Wes Craven. Like the exact shots, like the claw in the water and Freddy stretching through the fucking wall. I was like, there is nothing. The kids are all assholes. I want them all to die. I just didn't give a fuck about this movie. I hated it. And I guess I was a little tired, or the hate fueled my sleepiness, because I actually fell asleep on the last 5 minutes. And when I woke up, I saw the credits rolling, and I was so pissed off. I was like, you know what? I don't even give a fuck. I'm like, this movie sucks. And then I think I did see it once. Did we ever do a ranking on the Nightmare on Elm Streets?
Yeah, we did.
So that was the only time I saw it, and I don't even remember what the fuck the ending was. So fuck it, that movie sucks. Then it sucks 13 years later. And then the other one was that came off the top of my head. Fuck, what was the year? Was it? I don't know. I'm old. I'm gonna say 1992, but I could be off. I was so fucking excited. I can't stand up and show my leg. I am a huge fan of the Alien franchise. I mean, I saw Alien 1 in the theater when I was 8 years old in 1979. Changed my life. Loved Aliens in 86. But man, fucking Alien 3, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Right from the get-go, when you kill Hicks and Newt, I'm like, what? I'm like, you couldn't have just put them in some other fucking spacecraft and jettisoned them somewhere, which I know happened because I have like 4 or 5 Alien 3 scripts that didn't get used, and that was one of them. But I hate that fucking movie. Everybody's bald and got their head shaved. Everybody looks fucking identical. The alien looks like ass, Davey. It's the worst cartoon CGI shit I've ever seen. What was wrong with a goddamn guy in a suit? That worked great for the first 2 fucking films. I hate that movie. I hate that movie. I hate that fucking movie.
That movie's terrific.
I almost picked that too, Alo.
It's a terrific, grimy movie.
It don't matter which cut you watch. I have the work print. I have the fucking theatrical cut. I have the director's cut. I fucking hate them all. Can't stand them.
Love it to bits. Love it to bits.
Yeah, I kind of like it too. I like the 4th film better, but I like the 3rd.
I do like the 4th film quite a bit better, but yeah, I hate Alien 3. Fuck that movie.
I'll take it over Aliens. No exaggeration.
Wow,
I'll take it over Aliens.
Davey, I love you, but I know you're not feeling well because that's insane.
No. Stop that, Davey. You stop.
No, it's just a nonsense action remake of the first one. I'm not interested in Aliens. No.
Wow, it's nothing like the first one, but okay.
It's exactly the same. It's the same planet. It's the same aliens.
Well, yeah, okay, you could say that about every fucking sequel then.
No.
It's not. It's not the same planet in number 3. It's a prison world. So it's a completely different place.
Oh, all right.
Didn't it mate with a dog too?
Yeah.
Well,
and that
or a cow, depending on the version you watch.
Yeah, I was going to say, right, because one was a cow or an ox.
Yeah. I tell you what though, Chris, that is a brilliant shout on Nightmare on Elm Street though, because there was 1 second I thought they were going to do something interesting with that, and it was they looked as though they were actually going to make it out that Freddy Krueger might not have been a child molester or a murderer.
Right. Oh, I kind of remember that. Like the parents would have killed him by accident.
Parents killed the wrong guy or something.
I thought, that's an interesting twist, and then it turns out, no, I just did it anyway. So.
Yeah.
So your one interesting idea, you don't actually have it anyway. So fuck you. Fuck.
All right, Dan.
Oh, me. Okay. All right. I'm going to pick up on something that Chris mentioned last show, and that is, look, had I never seen Evil Dead 1, okay, I would have thought Evil Dead 2 is okay. It's entertaining. But considering the fact you saw Evil Dead 1 and they come and make Evil Dead 2, you walk out of the film feeling that it is basically Sam Raimi giving a bigger budget, more color, and able to do a few more Three Stooges moves, but it's basically the same film. And I get it, you're gonna, they've traveled a long way to make this film from that 20-minute woods. Huh?
Poor Jamie.
I know.
I mean, I'm not the only one who loves it. It's loved by millions.
I know.
Yeah, masterpiece.
None of these films. There's only one film in my list I would probably equate Chris's tirade. But for the most part, had I not seen Evil Dead 1, it went okay. But I saw Evil Dead 1, I see Evil Dead 2. It's like, my God, I just double dipped, and I took some acid before I walked into the theater.
Hey.
Which is a good thing.
That's a bad thing.
I left it feeling like I felt the feeling. You could have been a little bit more original. I don't know. But I could see Sam Raimi. It's like, hey, I'm finally able to, like Peter Jackson making King Kong. This is a wet dream. I could take my vision and I could make it better or bigger. I mean, Lucas has been doing it for 30 years with Star Trek. He keeps tweaking it. But I was finding this and a little over the top, and I left it. Said, don't hate it. Felt disappointed when I walked out, and honestly, I haven't watched it since. I like the TV show better than the Evil Dead 2.
TV show is really good.
Yeah, Evil Dead 2.
I think I've seen Evil Dead 2. If I had to guess, I'm going to say about 46 to 50 times. At least.
I'd say I've seen it at least.
At least.
Yeah.
It's just it's missing all the grit and.
It's not missing a fucking thing.
The first one? Come on. obviously you weren't in the Grindhouse ever, so you don't.
Wasn't the deal though that Sam Raimi had to kind of make it as a remake of the first one to get
That
the
I don't-
funding? Wasn't that?
Yeah,
Something like that,
Whenever
yeah.
we were,
And they had to make up a.
I
They had to
had
make up
read-
a. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I had read that right. He wanted to do Army of Darkness as the second movie because Dino De Laurentiis wanted to do a sequel with him, and Dino De Laurentiis was like, "No way, man." He's like, you're gonna get more money, but not enough money for that. So you make a second one, you make a money, and we make a third one. So
Then
that's
you
what
make a
he did.
spicy
So
meatball.
the idea was to just basically redo the first one, but like Dan said, less grit, way more humor, and just really the only thing different is the last 20 minutes, the last 15 minutes, and obviously it was a hit, so then he could make Army of Darkness.
And I think the production company in the beginning is like fake, like Rosebud or whatever it is. I think they just put that there to help sell it. Yeah, look, we got a production company or something like that. I forget.
I think too, if I'm not mistaken, I think they did want to try and get an R, which is nuts with all the gore that's in it.
Yeah.
That's why the blood, is it green or black? I'm colorblind, so I don't know. But right,
Yeah, it's
not
kind
red.
of dark green. Yeah,
It's
it's kind of dark green.
Well, it's Reddit sometimes because it goes over the light bulb and the whole.
Yeah.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is that weird greenish, I guess, color. But
Look, I love bits. I do bits here, and that movie has a shit ton of bits. So that's why I love it.
I think
One
the
of
movie is
them,
very clever, and that's what has going. It's very as far as like the comedic elements of it, really, really well done. But I saw the first one in the theater, and I loved it. It was so great for its time. I remember going to see the second one, and I was like, "Man, this seems awfully familiar." I still enjoy it. I've watched it a ton of times, but yeah, I think as time has gone on for me, it makes me appreciate the first film even more.
And again,
I saw the new one. It's decent.
Is it? Yeah.
oh, that's good.
Yeah, I
news.
saw the new one.
I
Yeah,
haven't seen it yet. Hopefully
it's
next
okay.
Bruce Campbell a chance to like do his comedic side, which has actually probably opened his career up.
Yeah, I was good. If you don't have it, you don't have Bruce Campbell's career. Yeah,
And so it works out very well. Like I said, disappointed when I saw it. Most of these things I've warmed up to over the years. It's just, when the first time I saw it, it's like, God, I felt deprived. Anyhow, so number 2 on my list. Okay. Every year there's a every time we come out, there's a Alamo Draft House here, which is about 60, 70 miles from us up on our way, and where Pete and Chris and I live. And once a year, or once every 2 years, friends of mine who were Star Wars fans, they'd buy tickets, go to the Alamo Draft House and see the last 3 films that came out, this last series. And the film I'm talking about that I'm really disappointed was The Force Awakens. Why am I disappointed in it? I'm disappointed in it because, okay, you have the first 3, which is 4, 5, and 6, A New Hope. And then you have the next 3, which overall, the Jar Jar Binks, a lot of stuff is pretty bad. I said, but there are some pretty shining moments in that series of films. That there's a couple of moments that are great. But all of a sudden, you wait X amount of years, they're going to come back, they're going to return. They got the whole cast, everybody, this, that, and you're waiting this great anticipation. And the story pacing and the setup of it is A New Hope. The same story is The New Hope. And I think what they did is they did this because there was so much of an outcry over Jar Jar Binks and the pacing of the next 3 films. And what happened, that everybody that was in power sat there and said, we have to give the initial fan base, the old core, which are still alive and well, we got to give them something that they're familiar with. We're going to give a Schwinn keychain as opposed to a bike, something. And that's what it comes out. And all it ends up is just, it came out being The Force Awakens, and I felt just like empty. And then the next 2 films, where the fuck they went with those, I have no idea. But the first one, that Force Awakens, is nothing more than a retread of all these years. There's nothing more everybody, but they're much older and more crippled and beat up. They needed Billy D. Williams to come in that first film to give some oomph to it. But I just left that after that whole big hoopla. I found it very disappointing. And then the other 2 films kind of didn't live up to it and left you going like, Kylo Ren is no Darth Vader and so forth. But that film felt cheated. I felt but a lot of the fan base, they loved it. They were happy. I didn't really because it gave them what they wanted to hear. So That's it. Force Awakens is number 2 that I was disappointed with, and I have not watched any of that trilogy since. The only thing new I've ever watched from that whole series, and I think it's just off topic, probably the best film they made in all their films is Rogue One. As a standalone film, action, adventure, story, romance, it's boom. And that's the best film they have made. And I had kind of like a roller coaster ride thrill with Han Solo, as crazy as it was. But that
was fun.
Force Awakens, big disappointment. Thumbs down.
Speaking of which, Pete, we had talked a while ago about doing a Star Wars movie ranking, and we never got to it.
I know.
I think Pete's like, man, I got to be in the mood.
It's a lot of watching. Yeah.
9 Star Wars movies.
Listen, May 4th is Star Wars Day.
Oh,
so
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and yesterday was Aliens Day.
So we've got 10.
Oh, that's right around the corner, though.
Yeah, I'll never be able to watch them all by then. But yeah, no, we should do that at some point. Yeah.
Why don't we just do Giallo films in outer space? Okay, that'll kind of cover both subjects.
I will say I thought the Solo film was very underrated. I never understood why so many people hated it.
And that was a bomb. It made like $450 million, and it's a bomb.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that one.
I can't even count that high.
Well, I'm sure it bombed because that was the backlash to how shitty The Last Jedi was.
Last Jedi. Forget it. I know.
That could be.
I don't even remember anything about it. We went down there, big event. We go down there. I left the theater going, what the fuck just happened? I mean, I get more kick out of the Mandalorian, for Christ's sake, than that.
I'll tell you what happened in a minute. Don't worry.
But anyhow, that was it. That was my second one. Force Awakens. Now I can go to sleep.
Jamie.
Well, I don't think we heard the last of Star Wars in this show. I have a feeling between me and Aloe. I think that franchise will be coming back around.
Star Wars episode.
I've seen Chris taking notes already because I think got some ideas brewing in his head from just a couple things we've done already.
All right, I got a list here. I'm going to go down my list real fast on my first round, and then I got a couple stories in the second round. I used to get madder, I think, when I left the theater as a kid than I do now. Now you wise up and your expectations are normally lower. And you don't come out as disappointed as you were.
And we're old and we don't go see as many
I was
movies.
going to say, Jamie is so much wiser than I am. I still get so fucking pissed off.
I'm a fool. When I was a kid, The Black Hole. So fucking boring. Hated that movie. Came out, I was 9 years old. We went to Denny's. I remember after the movie, I saw a buddy from school there. First thing I told him, don't see The Black Hole. It sucks. Believe it or not, this one, I was a little embarrassed because I was telling my parents, look, Ray Harryhausen we all love, but Clash of the Titans has some major issues with it, with pacing and everything. And I told my parents, this is going to be better than Star Wars. And I went and I said, it's not even close. Damn it. But you know what? I had my mom buy me the toys because I was kind of forcing it. I'm going to like this goddamn movie. I didn't have the Kraken, though. I had that Pegasus.
Jamie, you have the Kraken.
No, that thing is
loose. That thing
so
goes
much money right now.
The Gentle Giant figure? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I didn't get the Kraken, but I had the little figures and I had the Pegasus. Me and my buddy went to go see a movie. And his sister was yelling at us when we were getting into the car to go. She's like, I saw that movie yesterday. It sucks. I'm like, your sister doesn't know what she's talking about. Firefox with Clint Eastwood.
Oh, yeah.
Sucked.
Yeah.
It sucked so bad. And we were so bored that we had we had spitballs and we were spitting spitballs to the screen and we were waiting for a sky shot when it was all light blue so we can spot our spitball up there. And Dune. 1984, walked into that thing, sat there, and I said, I don't know what the fuck's going on. I saw it like a year and a half ago. I still said, I don't know what the fuck's going on. This thing can end now. It can end 2 hours from now. And when it did end, I was like, okay, that's as good a spot to end as anywhere else, I guess. Awful. Everyone hated it back then, but it's got that Kiss the Elder syndrome going on where now it's a classic. That still sucks. And as an adult, another time when I was embarrassed, I told my boss in 1999, and she was really hot. I said, this movie's going to rock. Look at this. Look at this. This is like sharks and aliens, and that's fucking terrifying. And she's like, "Oh, another movie to let you down, Lazlo." I said, "Not this time, Nikki, not this time." And I saw the movie, came back to work, and she's like, "How was your little fish movie?" Stupid, so fucking stupid. She's laughing at me, so I was pissed. I got laughed at.
What is
Blue
it?
Sea,
It's
right?
Deep Blue Sea, yeah.
Deep Blue Sea. Sorry, yes, Deep Blue Sea. Batman and Robin. We went in high as a kite, killed our buzz. We came out. Nobody said, "What do you want to do next?"
Yeah.
It just drained us. We all went.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 3. After the first two, what a drop of the ball. Wasted Venom, the stupid dance. Sin City, A Dame to Die For. Maybe the biggest drop-off ever from an original.
Oh.
The original is a
Yeah.
5-star classic. The next one is like a 1-star dud. 4-star difference there. This one I actually like now. The Witch. I came out of The Witch hating that thing. I'm like, fuck this hipster. Hipster horror. That's what that is. This and It Follows. Bullshit hipster horror. Then I watched it at home, put on the closed caption. Now I love it. And Dunkirk. Oh, that fucking movie. I left with a headache, the biggest headache I ever had. I almost left. I said it before. I wish I went with someone named Kirk so I could say, "I'm done, Kirk. Let's go." The score, dun, 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 for over 2 hours. The score never lets up. I'm like, if you're trying to make everything intense, guess what? Nothing's intense.
Nothing's tense.
Nolan,
Yeah.
nothing. I know you filmed it and you think every frame is intense because you shot it, you egotistical asshole. But stop with the dun 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 score the whole movie. So there you go. I'll continue round 2.
I'm on Kirk, and I will go on record saying I love
Batman and Robin.
Clash of the Titans.
Yes, I understand that, but and it's not an awful movie. But man, I was like, as a little kid, it's gonna be as good as Star Wars.
And I like Black Hole too. I enjoyed that. I mean, the John Barry score, I always thought was really cool with that. And yeah, some of it's a little Star Warsy and everything, but you know, Maximilian the robot. I
think it wants to be Star Wars, but it comes out more like Battlestar 80. Not even good Battlestar Galactica, but Battlestar 80.
I like it.
It's weird about Black Hole. I saw that in the theaters when it came out. I don't know if I've never seen it since. I don't remember seeing it on a video store. I don't remember seeing it on
Disney Plus.
It came out.
I saw it in 79 as a kid. Liked it, but never watched it again.
No.
So maybe Jamie's right. Maybe it sucks. I need to watch it again. I don't know. I don't remember it that much.
It really caused a ripple. It caused a really bad ripple in Disney's finances. That film. They took a beating on that film.
Right.
It was like that was the beginning of the downslide with them. Yeah, and it's just kind of so that was the biggest problem with the Black Hole. And they try to compete with Star Wars.
And the ending, right? If I remember, like it just ends, and you're like, "What?" And then there was no sequel.
Yeah,
They go through the black hole, and then it's like they come out to Earth, I guess. So it's like, you know, they
were a little shocked, I remember, for the violence for a Disney movie in 1970.
Yeah,
Maximilian has those spinning things and it goes into a guy's chest. Like,
it was the first Disney movie, I think, that was PG at the time, you know, because all their other ones were, even the non-animated ones like Escape to Witch Mountain and things like Cat from Outer Space, they were all rated G.
Cat from Outer Space is great.
This was their foray into the dark, into R-rated, more adult fare. Yeah, they just didn't know how to handle it. You know, it's a shame, but hey, it happens.
They've come a long way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Craig.
All right, the two that I'm going to have now are their sequels that I saw some years ago. That when I left the theater, I was really, really upset because the original movies were ones that I really enjoyed so much. So the first one, the original movie came out in '86, and it holds a place in my heart because it was the very first movie that my brother and I rented when my mom got a VCR in 1987. When I would go over to friends' houses, and we watched this movie so many times that we could memorize the dialogue and everything. That movie is Highlander. And in 1991, when Highlander 2, The Quickening came out, my friends, I went with 3 or 4 other friends. We went on opening week, and all 3 or 4 of us sat there in a row watching the movie, and we were horrified by how terrible this movie was. I mean, Sean Connery was in it, but then it's like, well, wait a second. He was beheaded hundreds of years prior. Christopher Lambert is now an old man who somehow gets turned young. He has the prize, but then it's somehow taken away from him. And then worst of all is when Sean Connery is addressing all these people, and he says something like, "Free men of the planet Zeist." At that moment, all 4 of us, I remember, we kind of like leaned forward in the theater and looked at each other, and we were like, they're fucking aliens. It's like, it was like, just completely asinine that I mean, this movie was so bad that later on it flopped so hard. They brought out the Highlander 2, the Renegade edition, which removed all the references of the immortals being aliens. And they even then, when a few years later, when Highlander 3, I rented that, when I rented it, it was called the Highlander 3 The Final Dimension. I think now when you look it up, it says Highlander 3 The Sorcerer. Whatever, that one kind of blows too, but it makes no reference to part 2, as if that never happened.
Yeah, part 2 never happened.
Yeah, I mean, it is just a dud of the highest degree. We were so pissed off when we left the theater that it was like, oh my God, what did we just waste our money on? And because we were looking forward to seeing it so much, and it was so awful, so awful.
Dan, you had a question?
Yeah, that was Highlander. That Highlander 3, I think that was more like a pilot for the TV series.
Well, Highlander 3 is the one that has Mario Van Peebles in it as the bad guy. I think the one you might mean is Highlander Endgame.
But that was like that brought in the guy from the TV series.
The guy from Adrian Paul from the TV series.
I think
TV series was a separate thing, and then they combined them in the last movie, kind of like they did with Star Trek Generations, where they had the cast.
Yeah,
but Highlander 2, The Quickening, is just so shitty. I don't even think I've seen it since, because it brings back such awful memories of sitting in the theater and like, oh my God, this is terrible. I mean, I think that had Michael Ironside in it too, and it's like, great character actor, totally pissed away, in this movie as a villain. Just absolutely worthless, bad movie.
So I don't think the first Highlander's any great shakes. I couldn't.
As a 16, 17-year-old, it was so much fun.
I still like it.
The lines with the Kurgan and everything that my friends and I could quote all the time, and immortals running around, chopping each other's heads off. I mean, to the music of Queen. I mean, it was a lot of fun as a 16, 17-year-old.
I went nuts so movies with Queen soundtracks. I'm going to Flash Gordon.
Oh yeah, but not as much. Or Iron Eagle, but
yeah. We'll leave that to better reviewers, Craig.
Clancy Brown was suitable as the villain, though, in Highlander. I'll give him.
He was great.
Yes, yeah,
very good.
It was great.
And Christopher Lambert was in it.
Yeah. Wasn't that Russell Mulcahy? Didn't Russell?
Yes, Russell Mulcahy.
Yeah, director of the Duran Duran videos, where he made his mark prior to that.
Same as that Mummy movie he made with the guy Jason Scott Lee that was in the U.S. is 88 minutes, and it really runs like 2 hours long. I mean, the 2 hours seems like 3. What was it called? Something the Mummy. Another Mulcahy. He's had like kind of a spotty career. I mean, inconsistent. So anyhow. Sorry, that was
my second one, the sequel that came out in 1996. The original version came out 15 years prior, and movie that I saw so many times as a kid that my friends and I could quote. That movie is Escape from LA.
Yeah,
which is so terrible. When I remembered going to see that with my friends, which again, it's like you would think you got Kurt Russell, who still looked great, for the part. You got John Carpenter returning, but yet the movie looked so cheap and corny, with some of the scenes in it, surfing down the Sunset.
Peter Fonda.
Yep.
Yeah.
The villain in Escape from New York is the Duke of New York, the Duke, A#1, the big man. And then in Escape from LA, it's Cuervo Jones. Who the fuck is that? What in the hell is this? I mean, it is just so idiotic. I mean, and it's one of those movies where kind of like when we sometime back when we were talking about Predator, where you could have made a movie like in Predator where we said you could talk about the story of Jim Harper's men, and what happened to them. In Escape from New York, there's right in the beginning of the movie when Lee Van Cleef is talking to Snake Plissken, he says, and I got pulled this up, it's he says, SD Plissken, American, Lieutenant, Special Forces Unit, Black Light, 2 Purple Hearts, Leningrad and Siberia, youngest man to be decorated by the president. Then you robbed the Federal Reserve Depository, life sentence, New York. Right there, that's 2 movies. You could show how he got the Purple Hearts, and you could show how he robbed the bank and got caught and was sent to New York. Instead,
I had prequels.
But instead, it's just so cheap and cheesy, and I was so disappointed. The movie tanked too, and it was one of those where it was touted as like a big summer movie of '96, same summer that Independence Day came out, and did really well, and it just flopped at the box office. I looked forward to seeing it so much and left feeling so pissed off that it was just a completely ruined sequel.
They were
I have
supposed
the
to do a third
soundtrack.
one, but
And it's got Pam Grier,
Well,
transgender, transsexual, trans whatever.
Well, there
it's a
kind
great
of
cast.
was a third one really, because Ghosts of Mars was supposed to be the third one, and then the studio said, we're not going to give you any more money for this. You have to come up with a property and put one of those rappers that people like in it, and it turned into Mars. But yeah, that was supposed to be the original idea of that was Snake Plissken's Escape from Mars.
We got Jason Statham. Here we go.
Yeah. I remember not
On
that
it.
long ago.
I'm on it.
Screen Factory, I think, came out with the 4K of Escape from LA, and they were
Yeah.
like, oh, and I was looking at them like, yeah, you're not getting my money for that. Nope, sorry.
I did rewatch it maybe 4 or 5 years ago on cable one night, and I was like, is it as bad as I remember? And I'm like, wow, it is fucking definitely
Terrible.
as bad as I remember.
It's got Bruce Campbell as Dr. Franken Facelift.
Like the cast is fantastic.
Steve Buscemi's in it as well.
I mean, the cast is
Keach,
unbelievable.
Cliff Robertson is the president. I mean,
Yeah.
but it's just so awfully bad.
Just be happy they didn't make a really good third one, because then you'd have the first one, then you'd have the third one, and you go, son of a bitch, take my money for the goddamn second one.
Sophomore
Yeah.
movie. I think that might have been the down start of Carpenter's career as far as making big productions. I think they took a beating on it.
He only made
He'd flopped so many times though,
Yeah.
Carpenter. Even though the films were great, he'd flopped commercially.
Most
that
of
it's
Mars
just-
really was
look at the
in a
thing.
barn.
yeah, so
The Thing was
Carpenter was
a great movie, but it flopped.
Didn't make
Yeah.
yeah.
His career is up and down the whole time.
Big Trouble in Little China, flop. His most
Yeah.
popular cult movies are all flops, really. Yeah.
All right, Davey.
Yeah, not much horror, to be honest. Because tends to be, if I'm going to horror, it's date night, or it's out with the guys, or it's a festival kind of thing. You just kind of accept, for various reasons. All three of those are kind of valid reasons for, the rest of the evening might pan out quite well, so you kind of forgive it. But some of the most miserable, turgid, disgusting experiences I've had in the cinema. 2006, Superman Returns. I was sitting there livid when they might as well have just picked Christopher Reeves out his wheelchair and just flung him on the floor, for goodness sake. I mean, what a fucking shambles of a film that was. When Superman Returns, so the end of Superman 2, and they tell you at the start this is a direct sequel to Superman 2, ignore the third and fourth one. At the end of Superman 2, he says, I won't leave you again, Mr. President. And then instantly he leaves. comes back after 2 years. And then Lois has got a kid, which is actually Superman's, but he erased Lois's memory. And then Lois realizes that the kid's got super abilities, but never once thinks, when did Superman rape me? Because she's now got a super baby. And she never once questions this. Then you get Kevin Spacey as Lex Luthor. He's in a different fucking movie from everybody else. There's a reason why Brandon Routh's stuck on fucking, what is he on? Legends of Flash, Arrow?
Legends of Tomorrow,
all those things, because he's a TV actor at best. He's absolutely atrocious. A vague resemblance to Christopher Reeves does not a Superman make. It was tedious, it was dull, and for God's sake, another film where, what's the big plot? Lex Luthor wants land. Lands. It's like, Chris, can we have a fucking Brainiac? Can we have Zod? Can we have any of this? No, it's always fucking land and fucking, I'll be going to Addis Ababa, Mr. Luthor. Fuck off.
Did he have Otisville? The Otisville?
No, you don't even get Otisville. And they could have brought back Ned Beatty at least. Now here's one that I'm gonna defend a little bit of what Dan said. Episode 7 of Star Wars, I think, needed to be made because you had so many man babies going on about those prequels saying George Lucas raped my childhood. You know, there was even a song called George Lucas Raped My Childhood. That it was necessary for one film to come out where they say, look, we know what a Star Wars film looks like. This is what it is. So I'm perfectly fine with 7. 8, I loved. Last Jedi, my jam. Because what that does is it says, we're going to do exactly what I want, Rian Johnson, with Star Wars. We're going to, even has a great speech from Yoda in it about the sacred text, which is the movies themselves. It's saying, throw it away, it doesn't matter. What matters is the future. That's what we're doing. And I thought, this is interesting. Luke's given up in the Force. This is quite an interesting direction. We can see where we're going from this. But then, obviously, it doesn't do quite as well, and people, you know, are very upset because a Chinese actress is in the cast for some reason. And we get the abomination, the disgusting Rise of Skywalker, which might be the most, I think it's the only time I've actually started shouting at a cinema screen. It was deplorable. That film had no reason to exist other than it was J.J. Abrams coming in to say, I didn't like The Last Jedi, and he just rewrote, you know, what he didn't like about it. I mean, they have Oscar Isaac, Daisy Ridley. All they're doing for half the movie is using a magic thing to find the other magic thing. And you have to find Lando first, because Lando's got the thing that will tell you where the other thing is. And that will tell you where the first thing. Fuck's sake. It's like, look, I'm not playing Legend of Zelda here. I'm watching fucking Star Wars. And then it turns into this bizarre, there's horses in space. You get the Emperor back, and I thought, right, at least the Emperor will be fun, because Ian McDiarmid's always good value as the Emperor going over the top. You don't even get that. He's boring as fuck because he's this decrepit zombie Emperor. I want the Emperor to be ridiculously over the, you know, like, oh, your friends will find this station quite operational when they arrive.
More of a Mr. Burns type.
Just this, yeah, happy to be a prick, you know, really happy with his.
It's all strobe
with
lights
his,
too and everything, right? It's like
it's horrendous. It's an abomination of a film. So fuck the Rise of Skywalker. It was tedious and extreme. Nobody enjoyed it, and there's a reason why Star Wars has disappeared from the cinema. And by God, do they owe a fucking lifetime of money to Jon Favreau for coming up with the Mandalorian, because Baby Yoda saved Star Wars. I mean, Jesus Christ, Star Wars was going down the shitter without Baby Yoda. What's he called? Grogu. Baby Yoda, fucking Grogu.
Funny thing about it, in the second film, you know, when Carrie Fisher she was caught out in outer space. That would have been a much more noble way to kill her off. She died in outer space thinking of something else instead of bringing her back for that lame. Now you see her, oh, she dropped dead, you know, because she's in the third film as well.
Well, yeah, but she died in real life, so there wasn't much choice.
Still not aware of that, but they could have figured her out, you know, whatever. But
I mean, I don't want to go too much into Star Wars, but I'll save with the Star Wars episode. But the plan, Dan, was to appease the original cast. Harrison Ford was the first movie. Mark Hamill got the second movie, and Carrie Fisher was supposed to be the main
there you go. Okay.
person in the
That makes
third
sense,
movie.
Okay.
Unfortunately, though, she did die in real life, so
Yeah.
they had to redo.
They dropped the ball by not getting all three in the same scene at the same time.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, we could
Just
say
for
Star Wars,
one
but
moment. Yeah.
I've said a million times, this would be like, let's go back a ways when all the original Beatles were still alive.
Yeah.
Somebody puts on a Beatles reunion concert where we're going to have the 4 original members with a whole bunch of other musicians. Sounds like a great idea, but you never have all 4 Beatles on stage at the same time to play one fucking song together. But that was done on purpose. I don't want to talk too much about Star Wars, but that's a whole nother thing.
But that was clearly the plan for the end, and that's why Lando's in the third one. He's tying it together as much as they can by that point. But because Billy D. Williams can hardly move in that last one, it's fucking sad to watch, man.
85
at least. And Carrie Fisher looked it, even though she wasn't. I'll finish off with one more from this round. Very similar vein, Batman versus Superman. I walked out of that film just thinking, Zack Snyder, you're a bigger piece of shit than J.J. Abrams, and you might even be a bigger piece of shit than fucking, what's his name that I hate? Damon Leone. I fucking hate Zack Snyder. I fucking hate him. He's a miserable fuck. Those films are dark for no reason. I mean, just because you want, right, okay, I love Batman. I love Frank Miller's run on Batman, so I like the dark Batman. He made everything dark, and everybody was depressed, and everybody had issues. And the Flash is fucking dark, and Cyborg's dark, and everything's depressing and dour. I don't want the first time you meet, the world's 2 greatest coming together, world's finest, literally, coming together, and you think, okay, we're going to have a little bit of a rivalry, but what do you get? Fucking, do you bleed? You will. It's like, Jesus Christ, this is fucking. And Batman, he's got this whole code about does he kill, doesn't he? Can he take a life? This Batman doesn't give a fuck. He's got machine guns in the front of his car, man. He's just mowing guns down, whatever. He does not care. He does not care. So why should I care? Zack Snyder just turned this into basically Watchmen porn, which is obviously what he wanted to do all along, is make everything as dark as possible and as depressing as possible. And how the hell he thought he could compress the whole death of Superman and return of Superman into 20 minutes at the end of the movie?
Yeah, that was kind of strange. Yeah.
And Frank Miller's Dark Knight. I mean,
and introduce Wonder Woman. I mean, he thought he could do all that. And if, come on, Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor, fuck a duck. I mean, he comes up with all the symbols for the heroes. So Lex Luthor knows all their secret identities straight away. It's like, no wonder this franchise is just bombed about 20 different ways. And they've had to throw money at James Gunn to come in and rescue them, because it's just been an abomination from day one. Nothing has gone right at DC. And you can just pinpoint exactly where the mistakes were made. And it was when they said, Zack Snyder, here's the keys to the kingdom. He should have just been given the one movie like Favreau was, but they never had a Kevin Feige overlooking it, who wasn't a director but had a bigger vision. They never had that, and that was the big mistake. Here's hoping that they've got that with James Gunn moving forward, but once bitten, 10 times shy, because what we've had. No.
You'll see. All right, my first choice today, I'm going to go to 2004, M. Night Shyamalan's The Village.
that's a good one.
That is, yeah.
I remember, because I don't know if you guys remember the marketing for this film. It looked awesome.
Yeah.
We were already riding a high from his films before, and we're like, all right, this is going to be good. Creatures in the woods and all that. You go and you sit down in the film, and it's like, all right, it's this kind of like 19th century backwoods village, kind of like the Quakers in Pennsylvania, and they're very
Or The Witch.
What's that?
Or like The Witch.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. And, there's this whole mythology thing of like, you can't go outside of the village. If you go into the woods, there's these creatures that will kill you, right? And you get these little glimpses and things. And the whole first half of the movie is actually kind of chilling and kind of atmospheric, and you really like it. And then as the movie gets on, you find out, spoiler alert, people, there's no fucking creatures, right? There's the townspeople are dressing up like the creatures. And then we find out, holy shit, it's not even the 19th century. It's modern day. And this little town was created in 1970 by a bunch of yahoos who wanted to escape from society and start their own little community. And they started this whole myth of the creatures because they didn't want anybody to go out and discover the real world. And that's the film.
It ends up there like right next to the Jersey Turnpike. Or something.
Right. It's like,
it's like, what the fuck? What's going on here? It's like,
I'll never forget, like that movie ended and the lights went on and everybody looked at each other like, what?
The
That's
monster
the twist ending? I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
That's like something right out of Scooby-Doo, where it's like the people are just dressed up as these monsters, walking
Makes you want
around.
to go back and revisit the Feast trilogy at that point.
Nice. Pete, I know what I mentioned it on a previous Monsters Den episode. I thought, after I saw The Village in the theater too, and I thought, wow, the twist should have been when they went outside. It's not fucking modern day times. It should have either been like the fucking apes from Planet of the Apes, or like aliens, or like something.
Well, that would have been humorous at least, right?
Yeah.
It's like, an insult to our intelligence. It was crazy.
There was Romans in the next town and Egyptians in the next town, and there's all these different time zones.
It's actually
Westworld. That's great.
Yeah.
Like that idea.
It's actually Westworld.
Yeah, there you go.
That would even be better.
But yeah, it was
just
just
it was a good cast. The acting was good. The first half of the film was kind of cool, right? And then
I wonder if sometimes he writes his movies backwards. He comes up with the twist first.
Oh, I think he always does.
Yeah,
I think he always does.
You can tell, like with that movie. Like when the chick was blind, the whole time I'm like, she's blind for a reason, so the twist works. And it won't work unless she's blind. Let's see why she's blind.
And I'm convinced to this day he only made The Happening so that people would think that The Village was slightly better, because that film was
that's even it's The Wind.
The Lady in the Water is the worst.
No, I'd say The Happening. I mean, it's just The Wind, and Marky Mark is just going, what? Oh my God, it's the wind. What? Oh no, we got to escape from the wind. Oh no. It's like, yeah, escape from the wind, pal. Good luck with that.
But it was funny to see like people jump into launmowers and things like that,
Oh, the guy who puts his head in a, but whatever. The guy's a hack, isn't he? Just every so often he has a good idea. It's,
If the Village were part of like Westworld, like you're going to go to Westworld, would you rather spend your week in a Western brothel, a Roman orgy, or a backwoods Amish, miscreants? I'll take the miscreant. I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
Can't wait. I could churn some butter.
Yep.
Come on. Give me
All right, my other choice here for this round is 2022's Thor: Love and Thunder.
Oh yeah.
Still haven't seen it.
So it's the fourth Thor standalone film, and for me, they just completely jumped the shark with this one, because I thought Ragnarok was a lot of fun, because the first Thor film is really good. Second one, Dark World, is almost like it's just too dark and just not a good villain, and like it's okay. And then Ragnarok was good because it not only was it a pretty good action-filled superhero movie, it was a really good kind of slightly comedic buddy film with Thor and Hulk.
Good Planet Hulk adaptation.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed that a lot. But then they bring this movie in, and now all of a sudden Thor is reduced to this like comedic, clueless bumpkin who... Where's the badass Thor that we all grew to know and love? It's basically like a comedy romance, right? A romantic comedy. To me, the only really good scenes in the entire film is when Christian Bale, who's playing Gore the God Butcher, whenever he's on screen, I'm excited. And all the scenes with him are really, really good. We don't see enough of them. And then the end, now Thor now has this like little girl, and he's going to raise her. And it's like, you're left watching the film. You're like, all right, is this the end of Thor in the MCU? Because this was like trying to be a comedy, and it's not funny. The bits in Ragnarok were funny. The bits in this film were not funny at all. But it made like $800 million. What the hell do I know? But I walked out of my wife and I walked out of the theater, and we were like, really? That's all they got?
See, I think the difference is though, Pete, it made 800 million, but look at the next wave of Marvel films that have come along since. They have not made 800 million. So I think the real legacy is that people are now getting the burnout that we've all been hearing about for 10 years. It's only now starting to kick in. Yeah. Plus, when it's on streaming so quickly these days, they're killing their own business at the box office.
For sure.
May I interject? I think what's happening, or I think a couple of shows ago, somebody was mentioning what is the state of the Marvel universe in films. And I think what's happened is they're realizing in the big dollar and cents thing, it's let's go to streaming. Because you put a film out, if they're doing film prints as opposed to digital, the money they spend on putting things in theaters around the country, okay, now they can just channel you in and have you subscribe, and they can control their narrative and their universe. And most people that are signing up for the Marvel thing are in there all year long. They don't, very few people will join and quit. But I think a lot of these superhero things are trying to push more towards that's eventually what's going to happen. Theaters are slowly going to just disappear. And it's going to be all streaming. And I think that's in the marketing aspect. This is the most profitable. This is the cheapest way we can do it because it's a constant revenue stream and we ain't going to sell any fucking popcorn. And that's
Disney Plus has lost a shit ton of subscribers.
right.
Now, Disney has to cut, I think they want to cut $7 billion from their budget. Like in the last 2 weeks, they just laid off 7,000 people.
Mhm.
So
I
of
don't think
Netflix,
streaming-
Because you can't make a movie for under like $500 million.
Well, now they're going to cut all the budgets on everything. But what I was going to say, Pete, was okay. Whatever Thor 4 made, it was
Thor.
less than Thor 3.
Oh yeah.
And the audience was very divided over it. And Chris Hemsworth I read an interview, and he's like, I'm not doing another movie with Taika Waititi. He's like, Thor was an idiot in this movie, and if I ever do another Thor movie, it's got to be back to how he was.
That's what the problem. So what's really happening here is that as someone who's been reading Marvel comics since 1970, what they're doing is they're taking most of these characters and storylines so far away from the source material that they're alienating all the original comic book fans. And so because they're trying to make these films appeal to people who don't read the comics, who don't know all these stories. And it's like, we'll make, this character who used to be a man, now he's a woman. And this person who was black, this person was black, now is white. This person was white, now is Asian, and all this kind of stuff. And then here, this is trans and this and that. That's what they're doing. And all the old time comic book fans are tuning out in droves.
Well, because
I don't think there's enough old school comic fans to make a business model. But because who cares that Nick Fury used to be white when Samuel L. Jackson was playing him? As long as it's a good story, people will still come back. The problem is they've just oversaturated absolutely everything.
Mhm.
I mean, you shouldn't have to go to. They released a teaser for the Marvels. And I said to somebody, that looks entertaining. And they said, oh, yeah, have you seen WandaVision? And you need to have seen Captain Marvel 1 and 2, which isn't out yet. And you need to have seen Quantum Mania. And you need to... I was like, Jesus Christ, I don't want to see 25 movies and 13 TV shows just to watch a 2-hour film that I probably won't like because Brie Larson's an arsehole.
Well, we've talked about it a lot. I mean, I think that's the issue. It's like I would enjoy just some more standalone films that isn't a continuation to something. It's just a good story, right?
Yeah.
honestly,
That's the big problem. They're just not making good stories like they used to.
Yeah.
Werewolf by Night is like 58 minutes. It's a great little film. It's a fun little film, Werewolf by Night. Not an exact comic, but they don't.
I thought Werewolf by Night was great.
Yeah. But they want. I agree with what Chris said. You got to make more standalone movies. Why is REC3 so popular? It's a standalone movie. The Rogue One, it's really a standalone movie. It really, you have some compare. So the standalone movies, they're so wrapped up in trying to continue the storyline. And if a director leaves, another vision comes in, and what's his name? Tanaka Kakawaki, whatever his name is. I can never pronounce it. I mean,
I saw him in a tag team match with Mr. Fuji.
What we do in the shadows is a fucking brilliant comedy. I mean, he's got that down. I mean,
so it's Hunt for the Wilder People.
Why are you giving him Thor? I mean, this is like saying,
No, but he was great in Ragnarok, though, and that's what Pete's saying. I mean, it's a Marvel problem where when they have one success, they give them unlimited. It's like do whatever you want. Then you've had one big hit, so just do whatever you want, and it ends up that every character and. This isn't the case in the limited amount of comics that I know. Every character acts the same. They're all wisecracking leads. They all make the same kinds of jokes. You can substitute the characters. Doctor Strange just talks like Tony Stark. You know, they all talk exactly the same.
Yeah.
The irony is, regardless of how, unless the producer has total power over it, certain people, okay, the ultimate decision on what's going to market, what's going to sell the product is in the hands of a fetus wearing a suit, who's just an fingers, numbers and figures. This is not going to work. Cut this out, take rid of that. I think when they were going to do the Superman film with Nick Cage, one of the things that Kevin Smith said when they were trying to pitch the idea and make it, he was one of the, I think, the original scriptwriter on it.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah. One point, Nick Cage goes to visit the Fortress of Solitude. Now, what do you do with the Fortress of Solitude? You want solitude, or you talk to your little friends in the jar. You know, the city that was fucking
the Kandarians. Right?
Yeah,
Wasn't
that's one thing.
Kandarians?
Yeah. They
the bottle city of Kandor. Yeah.
They felt that oh, there's nothing happening, and literally Kevin Smith has said, one of the executives across the table looked at him and said, "Why don't you have Superman fight a polar bear?"
Well, that was John Peters. John Peters,
said,
from
polar bear.
And he demanded a giant spider for the film as well.
Yeah,
and then went on to make Wild Wild West, in which we get a giant spider.
But that's unfortunately, some decisions are made by the people in the head office.
All right, Al, what you got?
Yeah.
All right, real quick. I was a huge Godzilla fan. 1998, I went to go see the Matthew Broderick Godzilla. I was at the very first showing. They even gave me this cool fucking thing because I was at the very first showing with my friends. It was this like plastic thing that had Godzilla scales on it, and you slid it open, and the deal was you were supposed to take your ticket stub and frame it and close it back up. And the movie sucked so bad I threw it in the garbage. I fucking hated it. You know, Matthew Broderick was in the car driving Godzilla's mouth.
Yeah.
Like Godzilla is apparently a babe, is apparently a female who lays eggs inside Madison Square Garden, but yet his or her ass was never in Madison Square Garden. So how the fuck could the eggs get in there? Total shit.
And Godzilla's just a T-Rex now. Just a T-Rex.
Actually, it was an iguana. Fucking iguana.
No, but when it grows up, it's a T-Rex. I mean, it's just Jurassic Park.
I mean, to me, it looked like an iguana and a T-Rex had a baby.
Yeah.
Awful. Fuck that movie.
Plus Jimmy Page and Puff Daddy.
Oh, let's not even.
There you go.
Greg, I love you. Let's not even talk about that. All right, number two. Man, I was so excited about this. You know, if we're talking trilogies, I would say, gun to my head, okay, probably my favorite trilogy of all time is the original Star Wars trilogy. I guess if I had to come up with a number two, I probably would have went with the Indiana Jones films. But then they had in 2008, I was so excited to see Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Yeah. There's aliens and there's a nuclear explosion. And for Indiana Jones to survive, he's got to go inside a refrigerator and ride out the explosion and all this other horse shit. It was just fucking terrible. They should have left well enough alone. I hope part 5 is good, but I'm sure it's going to suck. So, yeah, that's my two.
All right. Dan, back to you.
Back to you. Okay, here we go. Failed TV show, cult following, the first big screen adaptation, and that's Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
No.
Once again, here it is. You know, a series that really, for all intents and purposes, failed. Okay, developed a cult following, goes on. All of a sudden, they're going to do a film about it. It just dragged. It was so. I mean, Stephen Collins is just boring. Persis Khambatta is boring. The film drag. They're wearing footy pajamas. It was great being introduced to the original characters, but I just found it just dragged along and along. You know, it was like a Lars von Trier version of fucking science fiction. That was my feeling out when I saw it. Now, Wrath of Khan redeemed it, and I thought Wrath of Khan is probably one of the greatest sequels to a TV show ever made for continuity. And I even liked the next one after, Search for Spock. The one with the whales, that was like an oversized TV episode that they would do in the 60s. And then the last two, I was so comfortable with these characters as in, you know, Spock, and they worked together for so many years and despise each other equally or whatever they were doing, that there was a certain type of family chemistry with them when they were in these films. They became
all 6 of them.
And I enjoyed it even in 5 and 6. But number one I found was a really boring, but once again, like what Peter said, it made big money. big money, and so forth there. Now, next one up. This is just not going to sit well, maybe not with here, but in 1933, I would like to consider King Kong probably one of the greatest action adventure films ever made. From the score, from the acting, from the pacing, this film and the special effects at that time, it probably is one of the greatest action adventure films, not even a monster film. Boom, straightforward. You can watch it all the time. I grew up watching on Channel 9 movies. I even wear a King Kong tie on Thanksgiving because they used to show it in the New York market on Thanksgiving back in the 60s and 70s. The three Willis O'Brien films, King Kong, Son of Kong, and Mighty Joe Young. Now, that being said, so all of a sudden you're finding out it was tottering on Hollywood in 1996. Peter Jackson's going to do a version of King Kong. Now, you're not thinking of anybody more befitting to do King Kong. Not because he did Lord of the Rings, but he is probably he is the number one fan of King Kong in the world. Even owns numbers of production stills. He owns a couple of the remaining the miniatures.
Armatures, yeah.
Yeah, armatures. He has everything. He is obsessed with it. So you're thinking, all right, it goes. Then he comes off Lord of the Rings. He makes it. I'm very excited about this because I'm a big King Kong fan. Never was crazy about the Jessica Lange film for some reason or other with the big monkey, the mechanical thing. And
I don't like that one.
And then, then there was, of course, King Kong Lives. That's another show for another day. And
that's fun.
But I sit and I'm watching it and I get very excited and I go there and it is suffering, in my opinion. And once again, I read reviews this week. I did not revisit this film. Many of these films I did not want to watch again to like taint my original feelings on it. Yeah. But I felt I had it compelled to see King Kong. And I did that only because it's like this film has been viewed even by Roger Ebert as this fucking 5-star opus. Everything is epic. And it runs twice the length of the original King Kong.
Yeah.
Everything is over the fucking top. They follow the original script. Yep, they develop, the relationship between
me too, Jamie,
Arrow and the monkey, but everything is over the top. I mean, starters when they get to the island, okay, it's kind of cool. I'm up to that. The New York Story background, okay. Jack Driscoll is a screenwriter, okay, and then there's Carl Denham played by Jack Black, who comes off as they give a little character development. It's the Depression, it's like this. They get to the island. It's still cool. They come there to the island, and there's all of a sudden you have those natives that are living in fucking rocks like puffins on the coast of Madagascar, right? And they look. The only other people I've ever seen less fucking happy are the fucking vampires in Twilight. I mean, these guys are miserable. These natives. So they
love his Twilight these days, doesn't it?
And I'm under contract with Peter. I have to mention the film Twilight at least in the show in connection with something. So they go in there. Now they go beyond the wall. Okay, they get in there. Now, in the original one, there's one part where there's a brontosaurus that chases a guy through the swamp, takes him off of a tree. They chase, right? No, there's a herd of these fucking things. A herd. There's like 40, 50, 60 of them. They go in there. Not only are there 40 or 50 or 60 or how many there are, they're fucking huge. Number two, they're also like some kind of a raptor running around with them also. And these guys are running out of legs, not getting crushed. A few end up like Jimmy Dean's sausage patties on a griddle, but most of them are getting through this whole thing. So they go over the top with that. Then they go to the Tyrannosaurus Rex, the pivotal fight in the original King Kong, where as a child, when he cracked his jaw, and you're like, this is great. Well, in order to get to this, fucking King Kong has to fight two Tyrannosaurus Rex, swinging through the air, throwing Ann Darrow in the air, catching her in one hand, punching somebody else. One of the dinosaurs gets caught in vines and can't get out. He's stuck there. They finally land and they finally get to the fight with the Tyrannosaurus Rex, of which he does a great job with it. But by that point, I'm so fucking exhausted. Please, just somebody kill something. Okay. Now we go when Kong goes up to his mountain cave with Ann Darrow.
Yeah, I know it's a 3-hour movie, but we wouldn't have to go through the whole movie, do we?
No, almost done. This is the old big rant.
Right to the end credits, Alo.
Come on, give me. Everybody has their. This is my rant moment.
And the after credits scene.
Thank you. But anyhow, goes there. It's not only is he fighting one pterodactyl, he's fighting a whole bunch of like Nosferatu cosplay vampire bats. And there's hundreds of them. And they're swinging through the air. And they're not even touching Ann Darrow and the other guy. When they go to the insect pit, it's not just a spider pit. It's a whole, it's something you would find when you pull up your old wheelbarrow in your backyard. It's like all these insects. And you got the side thing with Billy, the kid, who has a Tommy gun shooting it. He managed to kill all the bugs.
Well, the kids in it.
And not hit, what's his name? Jack Driscoll. Then all of a sudden, what's his name? The guy who was in Friday Night Lights and he was in Bloodline, Kyle Chandler, comes down holding a Tommy gun, taking out all the, everything is over the top. Go back to New York. There's the ice. There's an ice rink. He's swinging, sliding on the ice. Bang, bang, bang. It's just over twice the length of the original film. And everybody praises it. Oh, because the monkey and her have a relationship now. He meets her in the street. There's nobody around. There's never a time in New York City, except during COVID, when there's nobody on the street. If anything, there's going to be one crazy guy yelling at the fucking street, but there's nobody there. And he brings her to the top of the Empire State Building. He gets shot, falls down, boom. And every line that Jack Black says is remotely epic. Comes off like he's doing a soliloquy in Hamlet, you know? And
yeah, they shouldn't have had him recreating the exact lines.
Over the top, but it's out of reverence. The film made boodles of money. Now, mind you, in closing, I have warmed up to it over the years, so it's not that. Good to hear. But out the gate, I was just so disappointed with the overall, just the length and this and that, and they missed the point. Last two I'll throw in last one I'll put in right now, and that is a film that was based on a TV series that was kind of known in the States. I caught it in the 60s on television, weirdly enough, 70s. By the 80s, it was like on some of the public channels, things like this. And that's the Avengers series with...
oh, you stole it.
You know, that and what's his name? Emma Peel.
John Steed.
Yep. So all of a sudden, I kind of got a kick out of it when it was on A&E in the 90s. So let me watch this. I'm not like a Doctor Who fan. I'm crazy about it, but I liked it. I went to see the Avengers, 1998, I think?
1998, yeah.
With Ralph Fiennes as John Steed, Emma, what's her name?
Uma Thurman.
Yeah, as Mrs. Peel. And then, of course, here we go. Here's Sean Connery playing a villain who wants to change the weather in the world. The problem with that film, this is the only film I have ever walked in, started watching it, and I literally walked out of the theater. Because they ended up, what they did with it is that they gave just enough little nuances from the old series that fans liked about it, but just enough to insult their intelligence. But they put enough stuff in there thinking that the new people going to the movie theater would understand what the fuck is going on. And they didn't, and the film bombed horribly. That film I revisited. I said, how unfaithful. I even rented it because I didn't even own it. I put it back on, and lo and behold, after 30 minutes, I shut it off. As I did 25 years earlier, and I said, I can't stand this. And the last two I'll give for special events, Battlefield Earth. Enough said with that. You're going to go into that one. And then finally, the reboot, although it's kind of weird, the whole thing with the Mummy with Tom Cruise. I was that one. And
the Dark Universe,
I tried to watch that again and forget about it. But that's all.
I didn't even get fooled to go see that in theaters. I waited till it came on demand.
He lives in a plane crash. He turns. Now, speaking of Godzilla '97, and I'm done for the night with this, is that actually the best.
You were done 3 movies ago.
I was done actually 3 years ago, but that's another. But the other one, if you don't like the 1997 version of Godzilla, the MTV Movie Awards that year, okay, if anyone recalls, they always be like an intro going into the theater, and they would spoof a movie. And it's a picture of Samuel L. Jackson, who was going to be the host of the MTV Movie Awards that year, waiting for a taxi. And into the taxi, pulls up in the taxi is Reverend Jim from Taxi. He's the taxi driver, and they start cutting footage. They're trying to get to the MTV Music Awards, but Godzilla is rampaging through the streets. And of course, Samuel L. Jackson is like, get the fuck out of here. And meanwhile, Christopher Lloyd is like, whoa, what's wrong, man? And he's just driving. It's kind of hilarious. And he gets to the awards. But that's even more entertaining than that Roland Emmerich thing. So that's it. That's my picks. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right, Jamie.
All right. 1999, I was living in Pittsburgh. All my childhood buddies were living in Sterling, Virginia. Star Wars Episode 1 was coming out. I said, guys, I'm coming down. We saw the original together. All these years later, I'm going to come down and see the movie with you guys. Drove all the way down there. We saw it on a midnight because that's when they did midnight showings. They didn't do it like at 6:30 or
No,
3 o'clock in the
kids today got
afternoon
it
on
so easy,
Thursday.
Jamie.
You had to do it at midnight. So we're there and everyone's hooting and hollering and Star Wars hits, the fanfare, we're all cheering. That was the best part of the movie. And I thought maybe it was just me because, they would do the slide cut and they, like Star Wars. And I said, okay, it's Star Wars. See, Lazlo, just relax and enjoy the movie. No, this sucks. And I went to go see it a few more times in the theater because maybe I was just too hyped. I just needed something. No, it sucked. I hated it more every time I saw it. Another one, this movie I actually kind of like. And I watched it again last night. But the ending pisses me off. Because, look, you can go as woke as you want to go with movies. I don't really give a shit. Look, if you want to make a black female 007, I don't care. You want to make Q gay? I don't care. But what you don't do is you don't kill James Bond. You just don't fucking do it. All right? All right, you want to be edgy. I blame Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones set the standard where anyone can die. And they're like, okay, we'll kill James Bond. Look, maybe it's cool and different for people. But look, this is the first James Bond movie I've ever saw in the theater when I was 11 years old. And I loved it. Now, you tell that little 11-year-old that they're going to kill James Bond in a movie, and how do you think he's going to feel? And you know what? That 11-year-old still lives inside of me. So when I saw that, part of me was very upset. A large part of me was upset. You just don't kill James Bond. You don't kill Felix Leiter either. But, you're wiping the slate clean, and then the movie ends that after the credits, James Bond will return. Well, I always assumed what happened to Sean Connery happened to Roger Moore. Same character. Here, it's just like a windshield wiper. Well, that's over. Didn't sit with me. This is not horror, but it's kind of a amusing story. And I did leave the theater pissed. It was 1999, and I was on my way home from work in Beaver County, PA, which is a backwards fucking town. And
right?
Oh my God, it's down in a hole too. And when you drive down to it, instead of the crests of the earth, you see the decades go by. 2010, 2000, 1990, until you hit about 1978. So on the highway exit, I saw all these people looking over the edge and they're parked. I'm like, what the fuck's going on in Beaver County that's got all these people's attention? So I make an extra turn to go over there. I park and I look over, and it's Robert Downey Jr. and Michael Douglas filming a movie. Like, you don't see this every day in Beaver County. And they got this car, and it's driving down and slamming into a building. And then they got these big fans, and all these papers are flying out of the car. I'm like,
Wonder Boys. Yeah,
I should go down there and pick up some of those paper, and then I'll have movie memorabilia of some sort. So I'm like, that was really cool. I don't know what this movie is. It could be a cop movie. It looked like an action scene. So a year later, I'm living in Columbus, Ohio, and here comes Wonder Boys. Yeah. I'm like, that's my movie. I'm going to go see my scene that I saw filmed. This is going to be way cool. This is not a movie I would normally go to the theater to see, but I'm going to go to the theater for this one. So I go to Easton Town Center where you buy your tickets. It's a big mall, like a fancy outside indoor mall. You buy your tickets at the bottom, first floor, and you take a long escalator up to the theaters. So I take the long escalator up there. I go to the theater and I'm sitting there. There's not a lot of people in there. I'm in the front row of the balcony, so I can put my feet up on that bar thing in front of you. And in walks this dude who looks like Al from Sanford and Son. Do I have a picture? Remember Cal?
Oh, yeah.
Sanford and Son. This dude looks exactly like him. His mother, who's a little older than Yoda, and the biggest sheepdog I've ever seen. The sheepdog came from Shaggy DA or Shaggy Dog. And the mother sits on one seat, Cal sits on the other seat, and in the middle, the big sheepdog lays. Now, they got that sheepdog up the escalator somehow, and I don't know how. And during the whole movie, the mother's falling asleep, snoring, and Cal is yelling over the sheepdog, "Mom, wake up! Mom!" And I'm sitting there going, is this what happened? Is this what's happening in other movie theaters? Because I wouldn't normally be here. So this is what must be going on in all the theaters that I don't go to. And I left fucking pissed. But looking back on it, that was more entertaining than the movie itself. Definitely more entertaining. I'll never forget it. That movie has such an arc in my life. And here's the actual scene with the
I like that movie a lot.
The Beaver County. It was a cold day, and the pages went everywhere. And I guess they just littered because there was no way anyone was picking that up because it was going in the water, into the river. So, yeah. I left pissed for a different reason because I was annoyed by people, but still left it.
I've never seen
Bob Dylan won an Oscar for that film for Best Original Song for Things Have Changed. And you've got Tobey Maguire's in there. So you've got Spider-Man, Iron Man, and the original Ant-Man. So
yes, there you go.
Same film together. Yeah, cool. Greg.
All right, my first one is actually one that Dan, you ignorant slut, you stole from me, and that's Star Trek: The Motion Picture. In when that came out in December of '79, I was 7 years old, and I remember that my brother and I, after seeing, and Pete, you can back this up, after seeing lots of ads in comic books where it was it was like the rainbow colored ad that would say
the back cover.
The human adventure is just beginning and everything. As a 7-year-old, and my brother 3 years older than me, no reference to Star Trek. Had never seen the original series or anything.
Really?
But in 1979, I was 7, so I had not seen. I have not caught up on my Star Trek. But being a young kid who has already seen Star Wars several times, I saw Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, the Gil Gerard. That was I actually saw that in the theater. When it was the first couple episodes were shown at a theater. Saw that with my family. Battlestar Galactica. So anything space related. Hell, I even as a kid we even saw Moonraker in 1979 because that was billed as James Bond in space. So as a kid I loved all these space movies. So we got our parents to take us to go see Star Trek: The Motion Picture because it's like, well, it's got spaceships in it. It's got to be good. And I don't mind the movie now as an adult that I've watched it, but as a 7-year-old, the pace is just glacial. It's not an action movie. It's cerebral sci-fi movie. Again, that's fine as an adult, but as a child, I was completely disengaged from it. I actually fell asleep in the movie. The last part that I had remembered was when Spock leaves the spaceship to say, "I will mind meld with this." That's where I passed out and fell asleep. And and from what my brother was telling me the other day, my mom fell asleep to the movie too. So it was that was leaving the movie completely disappointed because I was looking forward to seeing this science sci-fi space movie, and it was just so dull and boring. But again, as an adult, I can watch it, and I'm okay with it. My second movie, a little bit of an obscure ones, but maybe some of you guys have heard of it. I was fortunate enough to grow up near 3 different drive-in theaters as a kid. So my family took us we went to the drive-in theater a lot to see. I saw Star Wars, and usually usually the second movie was something similar to the first movie. It's also where I saw a lot of Disney movies that were reissued at the time, like Jungle Book and the Aristocats and the Rescuers, things like that. Smokey and the Bandit, I remember seeing in the drive-in. Anyway, in 1981, I was 8 or 9. And my brother and I'm not sure if this was the second movie or the first movie. I asked him the other day; he didn't fucking know either. But we know that we saw this movie. It's a Disney movie from 1981 called Condor Man, and it's
with Michael Crawford,
Barbara Carrera, and Oliver Reed, who was probably drunk and slumming it the entire time because the movie is filmed in Paris, Monte Carlo, and Switzerland. It is a cheap ass looking superhero sort of movie. It's about a comic book writer who, by accident, helps a KGB spy who is Barbara Ferreira, and Oliver Reed plays her boss. It was an infamous flop in '81, made by Disney. From what I had read, it had a budget of 14 million. It made 4.5. It was a huge downslide for Disney business in 1981. This movie is not on Disney Plus. It is not on DVD. Even it was when I read what I read is that it was made available on DVD, re-released in 2006 or 2009, but only to Disney Club members. So
I've got it in DVD, so it's available over here.
Yeah, it might. In America, you can't find. It's basically a forgotten movie. It's nowhere to be found. But it is so cheap and cheesy. The character of Condor Man basically has hang glider wings that look just so cheap. And at the time, even as a unsophisticated 8-year-old, seeing this, it was like, oh my God, this movie is horrible. And we were looking forward to seeing it, and because the previews, of course, at the time made it look like it was a lot of fun, but oh my God, so awful. I mean, and it's there's trailers out there on YouTube for to check it out, but it's a truly terrible.
Oh my God, I'm looking at pictures right now, laughing. Oh my God, I don't remember this.
Yeah,
I never saw it, but I remember it, but I never saw it.
It's just a
His
Disney
wings
film.
are like a mile long.
Yeah.
Another nail in their coffin in those years.
What is a condor?
Yeah, he was supposed to be a cartoonist who he fakes as being a character, being this. He uses this as his spy name of Condor Man. I mean, Barbara Carrera looks, of course, hot in it, and she reaffirmed herself 2 years later in '83 by doing Lone Wolf McQuade and Never Say Never Again. So she redeemed herself there. But this movie was just awful. Oliver Reed, like I said, was probably drunk and loving it the whole time. But
you can see that about every movie he was in, though, can't you? Really?
Maybe he stayed sober that time. That's why the film was so bad.
Who knows, right? Who knows? All right, Davey.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of men have been picked as well. I mean, Indiana Jones 4, of course, was just a massive disappointment. Living up to the original trilogy was always going to be difficult, but for the various reasons that Chris mentioned, plus the idea of the Russians as the villains, they didn't do anything to make you hate Kate Blanchett's character. So why should I be, wanting her to fail in her mission? They paint her as this great Russian hero who's done everything right, and she's not done anything wrong to Indy in the movie. She's not a Nazi, so you just naturally hate the Nazis, which is why we're now going back to the Nazis with a new one, because they obviously realize Nazis are just a better villain than just a perfectly normal Russian woman who we're supposed to hate just because she's Russian, as if that movie was made in the Cold War or something, but it was 2008. Yeah, an abomination, plus Shia LaBeouf. James Bond's been mentioned, but I have absolutely no issue with killing James Bond, because that film was done as a mini series for Daniel Craig. I think that's perfectly fine. It's a good experiment after so many formulaic James Bond films.
I like the formula.
Well, here's one that if you like, you're an idiot. Die Another Day. Does anybody like Die Another Day?
Which one is that?
That's the last Pierce Brosnan one.
Jones?
I haven't seen that one yet. So.
Yeah.
Thanks, James.
So this is the one. This is the one.
Yeah, that's lower tier.
Denise Richards.
This is the one with Halle Berry. This is the one with the CGI water skiing and the invisible car.
Yeah.
This is complete fucking bullshit. This is the reason why the franchise it made money, but it made so much less than the one before it, that this is the film that shocked them into saying, holy fuck, we've just been shattered by the Bourne movie that's just come out, and that's based on a book that hardly anybody knows. So they instantly ditch Pierce Brosnan. He gets fired over the telephone after 4 bloody movies. He gets a phone call to say, you're out. He was contracted for another film. You're out. And we're just going to start again because we are terrified of being obsolete. And it's completely their fault, because they went all in on the the ridiculous Roger Moore-like stupid stuff that they had in Die Another Day, starting from the Madonna theme tune, and you had all sorts of stupid technology in it. I mean, the villain is a North Korean who has surgery to become a white guy, and he's just played by Toby Stevens from then on. Which, you know,
Who's saying that thing?
Madonna.
That's right.
Yeah, which I just said, and she's in it as well, and she's terrible, but nobody's good in it. Nobody's good. Even Pierce Brosnan, you can almost see Pierce Brosnan just thinking, when's this check going to clear? I mean, Jesus Christ, it's the death of the chapter James Bond films. The serial James Bond films are going to have to come in, because it's the death of the one-off adventure. There's no more. Come into the office 007. Here's your assignment. Every film hereafter has to be the Craig verse. And it had to happen because this film did so badly. I think now we're going to go the other direction, and we're going to go back to 007 just been sent on missions around the world. I hope so, because that was a disaster. Last one I'll mention then, that hasn't been mentioned, Avengers was nicked by Dan. That was an abomination. It completely shat over one of a beloved franchise of the UK. But one that I really was looking forward to when it was announced, because I love the casting, and then the film was just absolutely abysmal. The Dark Tower, the Stephen King adaptation.
Oh, yeah.
I love those books. I absolutely love those books. The Gunslinger, one of my favorite characters. So what do? They've got all the books. They can choose whichever one they start at the beginning, and you can do anything you want. They completely ignore every single one of them, and they turn it into basically an 80s movie where it's a kid in the city gets taken into another world, and we see it through his eyes. Total bullshit. So you spend it watching this 12-year-old brat exploring this world with Idris Elba as the gunslinger. It's nothing like the books whatsoever. And fuck Stephen King, man. Fuck him. He did the usual, like shelling on the circuit saying, oh, this is great. He's on Twitter saying it's brilliant. It's the best adaptation of my works. It flops. And within a few weeks, he's tweeting saying how horrendous it is. And he's, and you think, give the money back then, you miserable prick. It's just like James Cameron. How many Terminator films has James Cameron come out and said this is the best one since Terminator 2? I think just about every single one of them. And then he always withdraws it and then says, no, this is the best one now. The last one was just, So yeah, these lying Hollywood shady bastards can fuck right off. So yeah, I think that's me just about shut up my wad, if you pardon the pun. But yeah, basically, let's include just the whole comic book genre at the moment, because I saw Ant-Man and the Quantumania last week. Pete, you've already mentioned Ragnarok. It's just that. It is just another strange world where everything is ugly looking. Bill Murray basically just plays Jeff Goldblum from Ragnarok. I'm not going to do any spoilers, but the major spoilers in the actual news, because we're basing it all around Jonathan Majors as Kang. Oh, really? We'll see how that pans out for you. So yeah, there might be a little bit of recasting going on there. He might be Rhodey. Remember, it used to be Terrence Howard who played Rhodey. Yeah. So the Marvel Universe in general, Star Wars in general. Dan, you even mentioned that Rogue One was the only one that stands alone. Well, even that bleeds into obviously to Episode 4, but even
it's mentioned. Yeah, I'm not saying, but
even that now has Andor as a prequel series, and we're now getting a spin-off of that, and the Mandalorian ties into Boba Fett now, and then we're getting the Ashoka series, which ties into both of those, and then there's going to be a film directed by Dave Filoni that ends all that universe. You think, can't I just watch a TV show in peace without having to watch 19 of the things?
That's the thing.
I feel like I'm getting exhausted.
Yeah. And does anybody keep up anymore, or do people en masse just kind of wiki it? Did they just do the recap at the start of the episodes or something? Because I don't know how people keep up with it. I really don't know.
I feel like there's always going to be an end to it, and I'm just waiting for the end. But no, the end is my death. That's what it ends. It just keeps going after that.
Yeah, because I mean, I thought the flops would kill it off, but as DC have shown, they'll just keep recasting until they, try and get it right. I mean, we're going to now have we've got this upcoming Flash movie has got Batman Ben Affleck, Batman Michael Keaton, and we've also got Batman Robert Pattinson filming at the moment, and we're getting a new Batman for the new James Gunn DCU. So we've got 4 Batman actors at one time.
And all these Jokers, and it's just
I haven't seen any of the recent Marvel films nor the James Pattinson Batman. It's exhausting. I mean, what Jamie said.
And even that, the Robert Pattinson Batman, they could have that as a nice tight little standalone thing. Colin Farrell's getting a Penguin spin-off. That's already got a trailer out. You think, oh God, everything has to have spin-offs and
imagine how
prequels.
confused people are going to be 30, 40 years from now when they try to revisit any of this.
Yeah. When you need Louis Nasser and his physics to come and explain how to watch a fucking television show, I mean,
slide rule.
Oh man, I tell you.
Sure.
All right, my last 2. One's already been mentioned. Godzilla from 1998. It's terrible. I couldn't believe what I was seeing when I was in the theaters. I'm like, well, who is this giant iguana running rampant over New York City and laying eggs in Madison Square Garden and getting killed on the Brooklyn Bridge? And Zilla was a sucker. No good.
Yeah.
Terrible.
The worst actress of all time.
Oh yeah.
Who I think was involved with Roland Emmerich or somebody. It was like the producer's girlfriend or something. She's absolutely horrible.
Yeah. Do you remember what they did? Do you remember what they did to him in Final Wars, the Godzilla 2004 film?
Yes.
He turns up for 2 seconds, and the real Godzilla just fucking swats him, just kills him in half a second. Exactly. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I think Toho were pretty pissed off at that film, to be honest.
Yeah.
And my last one for today is from 2001, Jason X.
Oh,
sorry. Let's make Friday the 13th into a sci-fi film. Let's put Jason into the year 2450 or whatever the hell it was. He's been frozen in time and cryogenetically. Now he's half cyborg. And then once he awakens, yes, let's put him on a spaceship with a whole bunch of teenagers, just like you would see in Camp Crystal Lake. And what's he going to do? He's going to run loose on the spaceship and kill all the teenagers.
Uber Jason.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Uber Jason. That's right. They called him Uber Jason.
Yeah. I walked out of the theater just as pissed after that one as I did Jason Takes Manhattan. They're both terrible, and yeah, there's fun moments in them, but I'm just like, oh man, this franchise just totally sucks. So
plus, it was also late enough in the 90s where films were starting to get away from. They didn't even do nudity in it and things to try, for the teenage audience.
Jason X did have some titties, though.
Jason X does, yeah.
Barely though. I mean, it's kind of grimy titties. Remember, she's just lying on the slab. It's not exactly sexy titty time, is it?
They go into like a holodeck and they bring up like a campground or something, and there's like hot chicks. Like they try to tempt him or something.
Oh no, I do remember that. They've got.
I think it's where he takes her in the sleeping bag.
It's the holodeck.
Some green, go-go dancers.
It's the holodeck from Star Trek: The Next Generation, that just pops up in it.
And isn't David Cronenberg in that for like?
He is.
He gets killed in the beginning.
And looking scarily like Martin Popoff. I've never seen
them both at the same time, right? So,
exactly. Yeah.
They're both Canadian, eh?
Yeah.
Created the telepod machines, just like
this will be the next subject, the next show.
That's right. And I will say that I also left the theater with Dune back in the 80s, pissed off and bored. But I have grown to really like that film in the ensuing years. So
the extended cut, the Alan Smithy cut, or the original?
Either or.
Okay.
Either or. Yeah. I don't
know. I haven't even seen the new Dune yet, so I have no idea. I have no. Playing 3 hours.
It's good, but it's just a bit. It stops exactly halfway through the book. Or well, not a third of the way.
Really well made. So, it looks beautiful, but it's slow.
So we don't know how it's going to pan out with Timothy Chalamet playing Paul out in the desert. What's it going to be like when he becomes that version? So when he becomes Muad'Dib, but yeah. So I'm going to rely on that. But the trailer came out today, actually, the first trailer.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'll watch it. So, yeah. So there you have it, everybody. Films we saw in the theaters that left us pissed off as we walked out. So let us know if you've had any of these type of experiences down in the comments below. And stay tuned. 2 weeks from today, we will be talking about our 5 favorite giallo films. So everybody's going to come to the show with their 5 favorites. Italian films, right? All about the Italian slasher, thriller, exploitation, crazy, 70s, mostly 70s films. There were some that were done in the 60s and the 80s and whatnot, but most of them are in the 70s. So stay tuned for that. And visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, all together, all the damn time. Chris Allen, Dan Brown, Jamie Lazlo, Craig Kaminski, and David Gallagher. I am Pete Pardo. Good night, everybody. See you next time on the Monsters Den. Take care.